Hey everyone, welcome to Beginnings, the show that asks, where do creative people come from? My name is Andy, I'm the host of the show and a writer and performer based in Los Angeles, California. I am here in the house. Naomi, my dear, sweet fiance, is in New York doing some stand-up. I'm here with the cats, and you know what? When the fiance is away, the other fiance will play, and you know what that means. I made some gnocchi sorrentino tonight and watched half an episode of Better Things. and I'm going to take a bath. Ooh. How are you, everyone? This is a great episode. I'm very excited for you to hear. This is Megan Neuringer. If you don't know who Megan is, let me read you her bio very quickly. Originally from New York, Megan Neuringer got her comedy start at UCB, where she was an official performer for over a decade. As an actor, she was a panelist on Best Week Ever and a number of other VH1 shows, and has appeared on Flight of the Conchords, Fringe, Stranger with Candy, At Midnight, Kroll Show, Comedy Bang Bang, and much more. And as a writer, she's written for numerous shows, including Portlandia and Netflix's new show, The Fix with Jimmy Carr. I've known Megan for a while. As I say in this episode, it almost feels to me like UCB plays the same role in this show that SNL plays for Marc Maron on WTF. But Megan was a performer at UCB when I started there as a student. And she was a coach. She was one of the coaches for one of my indie teams. And for people who were, I'll say above me, further along than me, more established than me at UCB when I started there, I tend to have this kind of like, in my head at least, this deferential, obsequious, worm tongue kind of relationship in my head. But now as I've progressed in my own career and I am more of a peer with a lot of the people that I looked up to, I feel like we can have actual adult conversations. And this was amazing. It starts off, we're two Jews. We start off talking about bodily functions, but very quickly veer off into a somewhat serious discussion on faith. And some of Megan's childhood stuff was traumatic, let's say. And we talk a lot about that and how to get beyond some of those things, and this was just wonderful. I've never really seen this side of Megan before because I was too scared to talk to her like a normal human being before. So I was really glad we could have this conversation, and I hope you find it heartening. By the way, if this is your first episode of Beginnings, please check out some other episodes. I have done over 400 with tons of people. Just recently, episode 400 was Scott Thompson from The Kids in the Hall. I've talked to Andy Daly. I've talked to Damon Lindelof, Jessica Gao from Rick and Morty, and Tom Sharpling. Tons of other writers and musicians and performers and stand-ups. If you like those episodes, if you want to subscribe to the show, you can do that on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Stitcher and Google Play. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Andy Beckerman. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. And now, without any further ado, here's Megan. Our one cat has, I don't know why I'm saying. Oh. Well, no, this is in my head. So, like, our one cat has diarrhea. So, I've been sifting through litter for the last couple days, just examining stool. And it feels like, I'm like, I never thought as a child that I would be, that would be like a preoccupation of my adult self.
What do you mean examining? What are you looking for?
You gotta,
diamonds.
Yeah, ruby. Yeah. Did he eat some precious gems?
Yeah, feline gems.
Feline intestinal gems.
Yeah.
FIG fig. And blood, your usual
gotcha.
usual things like that. And okay, just diarrhea so far, but still.
Well, it's so funny because I literally went to the doctor this morning. I got put on a very strong antibiotic that causes diarrhea, and I have to be on it for 10 days, and I take it 3 times a day for 10 days. And its warning is like diarrhea.
That's the
It's
the
like
doctor's
it's
thing
like
at the end of
yeah.
the commercial. It's just
They're like
may cause diarrhea.
They're like drink massive amounts of water or diarrhea for sure. Like it's one of it has like its ultimate its ultimate warning is it can cause fatal diarrhea.
I just realized I'm like, that's the preoccupation in my head, but I'm just like, oh, we're starting out talking to Jews about diarrhea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How cliche.
Well, first it was your cat's intestines. Then I made it my intestines. And eventually we'll talk about the state of Israel's intestines.
Well, no, let's not. I would like to have a career.
Yeah.
No, but it is interesting that is one of the first places my brain. Well, again, that's where I'm correct. But you
knew I was safe. You looked at my face and
well, you
my
yes
energy.
anded it. You in some way you're like, oh, you okay? What is my personal journey with diarrhea?
Maybe I entered with a vibe or an aura of diarrhea. Maybe like there was like a kind of like, you know how people are taking those aura photos. They're like Polaroids, and they're just, there's like a blue aura, right? It's just narcissism. But my aura may have been brown, a nice brown aura, and you picked it up, and now we're here.
Well, is that something that you are? I was going to say susceptible to. I think that's rude. Are you someone who believes in that kind of the new agey spectrum of beliefs?
I keep changing as I get more, I don't know, the longer I live in LA, it changes, but also it really depends. Like when I'm in a really good place, I'm not checking my horoscope. And when shit's bad, I'm like, what does the horoscope say? And I do think that for most people, when life is going pretty well, you're not looking for explanations. You don't need outside help really. But when things are kind of dicey, you're like, let me see must be the universe has a plan. You need some kind of faith help. So I like it. I think it's fun, like horoscope stuff. Now I own crystals because I live in LA. I do think that I'm sort of now at a place where I'm not so arrogant that I think I know everything. Mm-hmm. So there's enough agnosticism where I'm like, I don't know for sure. So maybe I believe in everything because I don't know enough to know the fact. Like some of it, I mean, I don't know. Pseudoscience still has the word science in it, Andy. I'm like,
you're talking to a former philosophy professor who taught classes on critical thinking with segments on pseudoscience. So
does anybody here critically think?
So you won't convince me of something different, but I am empathetic enough to not lecture other people or even, I had a friend talk to me about crystals years and years ago, and it seemed not only like a harmless belief to have, but also something that there is, I think, something behind it in the way that it orients you. That's different crystals that have certain that the people who use them have believe they have certain properties can orient you in a real way. That has an actual, that has something real behind it. So I don't necessarily believe that the crystal itself is doing anything, but I do believe that there is some kind of psychological effect that it can have on the person.
Oh, like a psychological placebo?
That well, maybe not even a placebo. I don't even mean that and I don't mean it to like. I'm not trying to stand above this and be like, well, you and your little beliefs. I mean it in like a real way. That like if you have whatever, I don't know what rose quartz does, but let's pretend it. I
think it's for opening up unconditional love.
Right. So let's pretend that you have some rose quartz on you, and then it makes you feel more vulnerable in a certain way. Then that's a real effect that it's had on you. Even if I don't think there is a cause, even though I don't think there is a thing the crystal does, it changes your psychological beliefs in a way.
Now we're talking about faith. I mean, now we're truly talking like philosophy professor. Like that's what all faith is. It changes you psychologically, and it changes your behaviors. It has huge impact. So yeah, I mean, that's just macro and micro versions of just things you use to give a sense of meaning or control or, assistance in the fucking, existential nightmare that is being alive.
Not to jump into the deep end too quickly, but do you have faith? Have you always had faith? What kind of faith did you grow up in? I mean, Judaism, obviously, but I mean, I grew up my parents believe in God, but I don't think I ever did. Even when I said I did, I don't think I really did.
That's so interesting. I just had this conversation with a girlfriend yesterday, actually. I was raised Jewish, and I was raised, I would say, kind of conservatively as a child. We did all the high holidays. I went to Hebrew school. I was bat mitzvahed. And when we would do, the Passover Seder or like celebrate Rosh Hashanah or break fast, my father, we prayed in Hebrew and we prayed to a God. And when we would tell the stories in the Haggadah, this was a Jewish God. And so it was sort of like grandfathered in, no pun intended, that like my parents believed in a Jewish God, but without having any sense of spirituality.
Yeah.
They didn't express to me an internal God-fearingness or that God was a source of joy or, relief, but it was our religion. It was our culture. But growing up, I almost had like a kind of Catholic guilty belief in God. I was terrified of God, but I would pray to God like he was a slot machine and I needed my shekels, but my shekels were like doing well in school or getting a boy to like me or my family being okay or like things that I was like grieving and like just the losses of life. And I just needed God to come through. I needed God to show up. And my prayers were just like never answered, but I still believed because I was too scared not to. And I kind of like coasted on that for a while. And then I had a kind of OCD relationship with God where I was scared not to pray and I was too scared not to believe. I was like, oh, if I abandon this, like I am too unmoored. Like I don't have anything solid in my life. I felt this way in my 20s. So I was like, oh, I kind of just have to like fully believe in God. And I would like sort of pray at night in an OCD way. I would like pray for everybody I knew and that they would be protected. I was like scared of loss. And now, totally mature, like healthy adult, I believe in a higher power. I don't feel that it's assigned to a religion. I think of myself as culturally Jewish, but I'm open to all religions. And I just believe that there is energy and like a kind of universal consciousness, and that there is like I have a much more spiritually developed sense of myself.
How did the more, or actually, let me ask this instead. At any point in this, was there any kind of inkling or seed of a deeper faith that maybe that it's now bloomed into this kind of like spirituality? Or do you think there is an abrupt paradigm shift in your beliefs? Does that make sense? Like, is that like, I just never had faith, and it just was never, there was never any kind of feeling of faith in me. There was never a feeling of a deeper connection with anything in me. And it's been something that I have probably sought out in other people, like trying to find that communion with other people or other things on earth, because I've just never felt it with any kind of deeper spirituality. So I don't know if other people, if you were like me, I was also raised in this kind of, again, while my parents never put their beliefs on me. So while they believed in God, and I'm sure I don't know, I'm not in their heads. I'm sure they have a deeper faith, probably the way they act. It seems like they do. There was never there was never any kind of like judicial enforcement of their spirituality on me. So was there ever this kind of like reinforcement when you were younger, that like a seed of some kind of faith, or was there again this, does that make sense at all?
It was modeled for me. So like sort of what I was saying, like, it was sort of just implicit because we were praying to a God. on all our holidays. And because I was going to, my father went to yeshiva in Brooklyn. He was raised that way. And every high holiday spent with family, it was like for a religious reason as well as social. There, so it was sort of just kind of served to me on a silver platter without, nobody said like, you can question this. But I was raised also very secularly in a secular community of, very educated community. So nobody would like, I have an older brother who absolutely denounced God very young and has been an atheist almost his whole life. Mm-hmm. And that was heartbreaking to my mom, I think, in some ways. But that's also like a mom just trying to control her child. Like, because the narcissism of, I would feel so lost without God, so you must be so lost without God. So that's just like narcissistic projection. Like, I'm hungry, so you must be hungry. And it's like, no, I'm not hungry, so I'm fine. So, I think that was where her like sadness was. But yeah, I don't know. I think I just kind of always did because I suffered so many losses so young, and my childhood was like pretty chaotic and weird and sad. And I do think that like I needed something very solid and like, okay, like there's meaning to this. If I can't hold on to like the, what's it called? What's that kind of sand that you fall down into?
Quicksand. Yeah.
If I can't hold on to the quicksand of my life, then at least there's like God will.
There's a divine branch.
Yeah.
in this metaphor.
All those Bible stories are there to like give you like lessons, meaning. Like you look at the book of Job and like this was a guy, I just remember the story, like everything is taken away from him. And it's, do you still believe in God in spite of your family, your children, your cattle, everything that's you love, everything that's beloved, everything that's solid in your life, it's taken away as a fucking test. And Job is like, I still believe in God. And God's like, fucking awesome, Job. Here's twice as many cattle, a new wife, hotter and younger than the first, and like all these new children. And it's like, yes, that's the story. That's the parable of like, you just got to keep believing. Don't stop. And I remember my mom telling me about that. She was so angry at the story of Job because she's like, but what about his children and his first wife? What about those? Like, she couldn't get over that, like, it just didn't matter because they were replaced. It was too sad. Like, even if God came through with a replacement, it was like, but the losses. And I was like, I don't think it's supposed to mean that. I think it's a Bible story. But like, yeah, she had a point.
Yeah, no, that story always bothered me. I mean,
it's so intense.
I mean, again, all of it was kind of, I think I got introduced to the Holocaust way too young. And I think that
you should think about the people that actually were in it.
And
sorry, that's a little zinger. So sorry. That's kind of funny, but not really. Sorry. Okay, keep going. I need to stop talking.
No, please don't. No, but yeah, no, yes. Well, look, what was the median age of Holocaust victims? So.
Oh, wow. I mean, massive amounts of children. Babies and killed immediately, like not even just like picked off immediately. It couldn't work.
My instinct was to yes and you, and then there's also this kind of like, I have this because you were established at UCB when I was a student there. I have this
even though we're the same age. I'm just saying, like, let's not date me. Just kidding.
No, but there's this like in the same way, like when I was in grad school, I had this desperate need for approval from the professors. There's this kind of like, I'm good at this too, where I'm like looking for your approval from that.
Yes. I think there's no way to go through UCB without experiencing that. I experienced that myself, and the approval validation. Yeah. I mean, so I relate to that, but you're sitting with somebody who is drenched in sweat and knows nothing.
I don't think the second part's true.
I just speak with authority and have a lot of opinions. That doesn't mean like I just have authority in my voice.
Yeah. But it's the power structure of any of the organizations I was part of, whether it was grad school or school, or I was raised in a way where the approval of people higher up than me was everything, and my ego is based on that approval. So
those structures make it so you feel that way, because otherwise they wouldn't have power.
Yeah.
That's their currency.
Yeah.
Your low self-esteem is their currency that gets you to involve yourself in it.
I mean, when I started reading like Noam Chomsky, like right after college, and he was like, no, the people in power they should really, it's the opposite. They should justify why you give them power, not just the other way around. And even though I intellectually know that, I emotionally don't know that.
Yeah, because everybody gets hurt by their parents. Because nobody like gets out alive from having parents. So yeah, everybody needs validation.
Yeah. Did you? Oh yes. So Job though, but like all these stories were just like, they were just stories. Like they were just things that I read while I was waiting for a bar bat mitzvah to finish. Like I was so bored when I had to go to like long services. I would just take the Bible. They always had the like. Half of it was in Hebrew and then the other half was in English that just sat in a little book in front of you in the pews. Yeah. And then I would just read the stories, what I was waiting for. It all bored me. That's the thing. I think that's why I don't have faith, that I was just bored by it all. And none of it spoke to, and I don't think here's a parenthetical in the middle of that sentence.
Okay.
I don't think they necessarily tried to make it speak to me, but none of it spoke to my experience and my life. And so it was all just like a thing I had to get through so that I could do something fun, so that I could go home and watch Saturday morning cartoons that my mom had taped on the VCR or anything like that.
I mean, I don't know why. That's just sort of like the burdens on the educator at that point. Like it's hard to learn and learning's not linear and not everybody learns the same way. So like, I don't know. I think it's incredibly hard to teach and to be taught. And, and so we've started the podcast.
On that, you want that to be the first line of the, it's incredibly,
I don't know.
And then there's like that's the little like cutout bit. And then it goes into from the beginning.
Beginnings. Like
we're here with Megan Neuringer. Yeah. If this was an MP, I've listened. There's so many podcasts that I listen to where I'm like that are incredibly popular, and I am amazed at that they have millions of listeners when it seems the topic is fairly uninteresting, but the host is like, hello, we're here with Megan Neuringer today.
See, I just perked up. When you went into that voice, I was like, I gotta listen.
Oh, you think that when it's drained of all enthusiasm, then it's perked your ears up because you're like, well, I should pay attention.
I have an uncle who was in the military and or he was in the military or his father was a colonel or something. And then he had a very high position for the American Cancer Society and would do tons of speeches and tons of galas and meet people. And he would always, when he wanted to get your attention, hey Meg, come here, let me tell you something. And he would like whisper. He's like, I got this joke for you. I want to tell you this joke. And he had done psychological training that when you lower your voice, people actually pay more attention. If you're just sort of like noise, but if it's like, I'm telling you like a secret, or this is between you and me, or this is like kind of important, people get, very interested and kind of a little horny. So it's a twofer.
Megan, I'm going to tell you about it. Gives your libido a little tingle. That's a weird thing for a uncle.
Well, no, he wasn't trying to tingle my libido. And also, I don't know that you can tingle a libido because a libido is not a thing. But no, he was not a creepy uncle. Beloved, still alive.
So wait, so you did have a seed of actual faith. There wasn't just some abrupt break where like suddenly now you feel spirituality. There was some continuity with your childhood.
It's always evolved and changed. Like I said, it was like OCD at some point, and I was like, God's a slot machine, and like only recently in the last 3 years am I like, God is not a slot machine. The way that I choose to experience, the way I choose to participate in my sort of imagining of a higher power or a greater thing, it's that I think there was something very naive about wanting God to just give me stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's to me not faith. Like that was transactional. And I think faith is kind of deeper, and you don't like use it for something. It's just kind of, I'm coming up with this literally off the top of my head, but it's sort of like, I don't fully understand, what's that stuff that grows in the ocean that's like dying rapidly?
Coral? Plankton?
Yeah, coral. So like coral is there, and most people don't know what it does, but it like keeps the ocean healthy. It's like this whole massive system that is so crucial to the health of the ocean, but like people dismiss it. Half the people dismiss it. Other people are like, it's the most important part of the ocean, and it interacts with so many different things. I guess it's food, it's a food supplier, it oxygenates, whatever. Coral's so fucking important, right? Well, in this moment right now, as I'm talking to you in this podcast, I'm like, for me, God is kind of like my coral. And if there's like not enough, or if it like goes away, like my emotional, psychological ocean is murky and not healthy. Mm-hmm. And if there's too much, then it's like not healthy. It's just like, it's this thing that floats and is part of a vast dynamic of things that keep me feeling healthy.
Yeah.
Gorgeous metaphor. Absolutely gorgeous metaphor.
When you were saying God is not a slot machine, my head went to God is, in your estimation, God is Las Vegas. It's the entire ecosystem that you're in a way. Like, I meant it kind of jokingly, and then as you were talking about coral, I'm like, oh no, there is a deeper, because for some people it is the entire kind of ecosystem, emotional or spiritual ecosystem they are in.
Yeah.
For me, it's nothing. It's like the desert.
Do you want me to bring you to God? Is this like, are you like, do you want, no, I'm like, am I supposed to be funny? No, I am, but I'm not right now. But no, do you feel sad that you don't have God? Do you feel, do you wish that you felt it and you don't?
I wish that I could be the person that believed that felt that, because there is a lack there. I do believe that there is that fulfills something in a lot of people throughout history, that deeper connection that I don't have, and I've never had. I don't think I'm the kind of person, based on my beliefs and psychology and existential skeleton, that it is something I could. And so I think it will always be a lack in some way.
It's so interesting. It's interesting. So I had this weird epiphany last year. Because I was sort of reframing how I felt about God. I had lost my father, and as a great loss will do, you probably like start to check in on like, what do I think of God right now, or like what? And I had this epiphany because I was really like grieving, and also just thinking about my parents. And like, again, parents are so disappointing. They just break your heart. Like, unless you're one of like the 1% like lucky people on earth, like parents are brutal. Even if they're good parents, you're like so heartbroken by them. They hurt you. And I was just reflecting on my experience of my parents now that I didn't have parents anymore. And I was like, oh, I miss them so much, but they were so complicated and you know, so challenging, and you know, not always the best. And I realized, over thinking about this and grieving, and I was like, oh, God is there because he allows us to love flawed beings. So humans were never going to be God. We were never going to be perfect. We were always going to break each other's hearts and disappoint and be brutal and violent and messy and insensitive and narcissistic and wounding and greedy and selfish. And so we're not gods. And so I was like, oh, God is that ideal, perfect love. And I need to have this idea of God so that I'm allowing everybody else to just be human. I have my God, and I don't need anybody else to be God. I don't need anybody else to be human, because my God is, I don't need anybody else to be perfect, because my God is perfect. I have perfection already. Everybody else just gets to be human, and I can forgive my parents, and I can let everybody who's in my life be who they are, whatever they are, because they don't have to be God anymore. And I was like, animals don't believe in God as far as we know, and fish don't, and maybe plants don't, but like humans, in order to feel fully human and have a fully human experience, I guess my philosophy would be God helps you have a fuller, deeper, richer human experience.
There's almost like a note of Plato in that. Plato had this belief that there's this like heaven of ideas, and in heaven, like this, the dumb version is like that I see in every like philosophy textbook is like a chair. There's a perfect chair in this platonic heaven of ideas. Mm-hmm. And then every chair on earth is this flawed version of the perfect chair.
And this is what it's like to be a writer. This is, approximation of the thing you had in your head that now you have to put on the page. And it's never going to be the perfect chair because it's the chair on the page now. Yeah.
And there's some, there's some measure of having to make your peace with the world around you because it will never be. And I think there are, what one of the problems is with our world is that there are too many people striving to make when I mean this is I'm talking about evangelicals. Mm-hmm. Evangelicals are trying to make the world, which is always going to be flawed, into the perfect heaven or destroy it in order to get to heaven quicker.
I would say that any kind of fundamentalist religion that is stoked by fear and control and terror, any evangelical in any religion is just, I'm like, that's just abuse and brutality. That's not, you're just so terrified by the world that you can't control that you're trying to control everything in this vision, this version that you're aligning with. And that is like so horrifying to me.
One of the things I thought, I just saw literally right before you came over, I was like flipping through Instagram and you had put up a picture of your mom and she looks you look incredibly like her.
That's so nice because I think she's so pretty.
Well, you both are. But I was thinking about like, I don't know if you were actually describing her in general, but you like said like her narcissistic belief in God, like what she believes you believe in some way, or there's some measure of that. I was thinking, I'm like, how fractal, when you look a lot like your mom, like how fractal that is. There's this kind of like, how much of it is then your parent trying to create another them.
I mean, you would have to ask the parent. I'm without children, so I don't know. I think some parents, and again, it's like the top 1% that could ever be free and solid and like loving enough and not codependent enough to like allow their child to have an inner life and their, the dignity of their own experience without, inserting like, it really should be this way. It should be this way. And I would say that most parents fall short in some way because it's really hard to keep something alive and say, I need you to like hold my hand when you cross the street and like, or not eat that Drano. And at the same time, also, how do you not muddy up? Like, are you really going to wear that? Is that the kid you're going to hang out with? Why do you want to study music? Come on. Like, it just starts to get muddy. So I have compassion for parents. I just think it's really hard to teach. It's fucking hard to learn. Like, I have compassion for both being a kid and a parent. It's a brutal relationship.
Was your relation, did you feel that she was trying to do that, or was that just like kind of an offhanded thing? And then also I put that together within my head, this kind of like that fractalness, and I'm like, oh, it's like I look in moments, I look like my parents, one or the other, but I don't think like there's a family resemblance as opposed to like it's eerie a little bit.
How much I look like my mom?
Yeah.
That's so interesting because I really, first of all, like growing up, my mom was like the most gorgeous person anybody had ever seen. She was the MILF. She was so glamorous, so stunningly gorgeous that it caused her a lot of pain. It was actually very, as much as she loved to be glamorous and make herself look beautiful, it was at times really very alienating and isolating because women were very skeptical of her and very, in the neighborhood, like there were local husbands who hit on my mom behind their wives' back. And you don't make friends that way when like you have an effect on men just because of like your extreme beauty. So, and I think even when she was younger, like in college, like men were constantly always after her. And this is like the late 60s and they're like relentless. And you also are seeking male approval because that's the time in the world that you live in, that you don't really know that you're like, she came from immigrants. So like, it was like, you get married. So for her to be like, maybe I don't want all this male attention. Instead, it was like, you need all this male attention because you need to settle down because men are the things that are going to save your life. So I think being a gorgeous woman was both the advantage and a prison. And I came up looking extremely ugly for most of my childhood. I was not attractive. I had braces from 4th grade to 8th grade. I had like 3 kinds of headgear. I had like, shit was fucked up. I might as well like admit to plastic surgery for how my teeth were. I really was like an awkward looking person for so long. And I honestly didn't get attractive till like college. And then I still, I kind of looked like my dad for a lot of it. So here I was being told even by my like mom in times of like fights and meanness, like, you're your father. You look like as a weapon. That like I wasn't attractive. And I was also very nitpicked about my looks because I wasn't very cute. And I also didn't care. And maybe as a rebellion to not feeling attractive, I wore like hand-me-down clothes. I didn't like do my hair cute. Like I didn't wear makeup. Yeah, I think I didn't want to try because I was scared of failing the beauty game. Uh-huh. And honestly, like at UCB, I think that was another place where it was like, oh, I think people are giving me signals that I might be attractive. And I'm actually not here for that. And this is so weird, and there's no way for me to win. And not to be like, wah, I was pretty. But like, again, it felt like this weird prison of like, I'm here to be funny and like I'm trying to get better at clown college. And now I feel like if I get something good, half the people are going to say, you got it because you're pretty. And if I literally, there was like no win. So it was like its own prison. And only now, truly, again, last 3 years, actually, let me fucking amend it because I'll never stop talking. In the last 6 months, I have been embracing being attractive. It's the oldest I've ever been. And I'm like, now it's time to be attractive. You paint your nails. You wear those earrings. You wear great clothes. You do your hair. You put on the makeup. Be fucking sexy, Megan. Like, and now I feel very empowered by it. Whereas I never tried ever in my life. And now I'm like, let's show up for ourselves. Like, let's put it out. Like, let's be pretty. Like, who cares? Like, enjoy it. So, it's so weird.
I mean, I've always been just average, so it's the source of I have this like kind of wish. I don't know. I remember feeling in high school like I was like, middle. So I remember feeling like, oh, if I was like super handsome, things would be a lot easier for me. Mm-hmm. I could just walk. I wouldn't have to like put on a song and dance to impress a woman, girl, high school. I could just like have a chiseled jawline and that would do the work for me.
That's not Judaism. Sorry. I have a joke. Judaism is like, you just look like when you open up your front facing camera. That's like what it looks like all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel that because that's how I felt. I always wanted to be more attractive. I never thought I was attractive. Ever, ever, ever. Like truly up until recently. And even now, it's, again, not steady. There's days where I'm like, she's cute. And there's days where I'm like, holy fucking shit, what is happening to my face? What is going on? I see a photo of myself and I'm like, I said to my friend, I was like, is that what I look like? Because I feel like I'm cute. And then I look at a photo and I'm like, oh no. Like, oh no.
I've just learned to never look at myself in 2/3 profile, which is the most horrifying angle. The 45 degree angle onto my face. I don't know about anyone else. I just know that like when I see that, it just like all the weight of mortality pushes down on my heart.
I mean, also, again, saying this, it's so funny. I keep using this word, but privilege. I say this with the privilege of somebody who is not ugly, right? But being attractive is kind of the most overrated thing you can be as a human on planet Earth. It's just overrated. It's just like, I know that the value in our society values being attractive, but if you think about the modeling industry and how horrifically women are abused in it, then you're like, is being attractive amazing? What is it getting these girls? Like sex abuse, exploitation, loss of childhood. So you look at it and you're like, what is the value of being attractive Like somebody buys you a drink one night and you're like, great, feather in my cap, weird external validation that you're like, that's not how I want to be validated actually as a person. It is a fake. So, but again, I say that as somebody who's not, I really was not attractive growing up. So I do feel like I've experienced both. Like I felt truly ugly and I wanted to be like so gorgeous. Like I thought if I were a model, I would have everything. But the truth is my mom was super gorgeous. And on this day of her death, a very sad woman. I don't know that being gorgeous like got her a better, happier life. So in witnessing that, I'm like, I don't know that it's the answer.
Where did she immigrate here? Is she first generation?
She's first generation. So her parents immigrated here.
From?
Like the miasma of like Eastern European Jewish imports. Like,
Pre-World War II?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's the same kind of, my family,
Yeah.
same kind of thing. Most of them came over early 1900s. Mm-hmm. And then my parents were born in New York in 1950, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. If they don't want me saying their age on recorded media, I don't think they care. I think we're the only people that really care in this. Although my grandmother lied about her age.
That's
it's
so
not
cute.
Even, I don't think even on her headstone, it's the right age.
Oh my God, so cute.
I think she...
Well, what year was she born? I think it's tough. I think that
I don't even
also,
know.
I think my grandma may have lied, but also to get on the boat to come. She might have been underage. And so there was, depending on the generation, like they might have said they were older so that they could actually get over here.
So what, I mean, do you think your mother's sadness came from that kind of like...
is this a comedy podcast?
No,
I do want to know.
not at all.
Is it?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I mean, if we say something funny, sure.
Okay,
great.
but it's not intentionally.
No.
Okay, great. Okay, so as you were.
Yeah. Did her sadness, do you think it just came from that kind of like her own wants and desires being foiled by her own beauty in an almost like tragic way like that?
No, her sadness was so multi-level, multi-ball sadness, madness. No, it came from so many different things. No, it wasn't just that. But again, I would say like you would think that the beauty could be like a balm for it, but I'm not sure it was.
But is that the dimension of it that you picked up on as a child?
No.
When your empathy antenna was up, is that how you registered her sadness, or did you feel it in its fullness?
I felt it in its fullness. It was overwhelming and it was everywhere, and it was overwhelming and everywhere. So no, I just noticed that for all the compliments and gorgeousness and glamour and like the way she like could turn herself out, like look so incredible, it wasn't making the sadness go away. It wasn't making her happier. It wasn't making a warmer relationship with anybody. It was just a put on. It was a costume. Right.
How did your dad react to that? What was he like as a person? And then I guess how did he react to that?
I really love my dad. And I feel very protective, but I will admit that I think there was a touch of Asperger's. So like he was non-reactive. There was no reaction to almost anything. He was very doting on me. And he was very focused on my talents and my intelligence and my creativity and my playing soccer. And he was very supportive of me as a total person. And so a lot of my self-esteem came from that I was very capable, very smart, very funny, very talented. But eventually you grow up you get older as a woman and your relationship to your dad changes. Like they back off and you can't really have one because it's weird because now I'm like looking like an adult woman and you lose closeness. And I guess it's like appropriate. You don't want to be like fucking Ivanka sitting on daddy's lap. That's wackadoo. But you do lose a kind of relationship and closeness. And so by the time I was an adult, he was very proud and he loved his family and he loved to be around me and he loved to see me. But there was more aloofness and it was like less reaction.
How did you, because I've never thought about that. I've always been like, been like the weird one in my family. And so I've always been at a distance to them. Again, I say this every episode that I say this because I just don't want anyone to ever get the wrong idea. Very loving family, but just not like I'm the weird guy. So there's never any kind of like, there's always a barrier. There's always something standing in the way.
Who's making the barrier, them or you?
I think I think we're both pitching in to create the barrier. But I think we're both like walking the concrete blocks over and both cementing it up from our sides.
What do your parents do that makes you so weird?
It just everything. I'm different from them in every kind of.
They're like two walking Ugg boots. Basic. They're just like your mom is a Starbucks Frappuccino and your dad is an Ugg boot. Is that what it is?
Not even like it's not even. They're not even basic in that way. They have their own idiosyncrasies, but I think there aren't a lot of cultural touchstones that we have in common. There aren't a lot of. I think definitely therapy threw up its own blocks because I went and I have a therapist and they don't. And I think there were definitely like they're more repressed than I am we were all repressed together. And so we could just sit and talk about what was on TV and everyone was fine. And now I'm trying to decide whether I want to even broach the subject of a deeper relationship or not, or whether it's worth it to upend the peace.
I mean, I definitely have opinions, but I don't want to like.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't. That again, it's like you'll figure it out. But I would say if you feel inclined to try a deeper relationship with them.
I don't know if that's
there's no guarantees in life about anything. Like you can't just say like, I'll only do it if it ends up good. Like nothing in life, like I will only do this if I have guarantees that it's only going to go the way I want. Right. Like, cause otherwise you'll never do anything. Like there is a risk in the richness of life. There's risk, there's loss. There's like one thing I realized being an adult recently is that when you're a kid, you think you're presented with a decision. And as a child, the decision is, if I do this thing, I will have a win in one way or I will have a loss the other way. So I'm going to go with the thing that gives me the win. And you learn to decide that way. But the thing about being an adult is every decision, there's a loss either way.
Yeah.
If you make a choice as an adult, you don't just have like a full-blown win and then a lose. There's a loss in every decision you make as an adult because stakes just become higher and because you just stop having the potential of like the full enchilada. So
yeah, well, in some way, all decisions, there's a dimension of like existential mourning involved because you are mourning the death of the other possibilities in some way as an adult.
Yeah.
In a way that it wasn't there as a child. No. And there's also this, I really like, I think it's Walter Benjamin, but his art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. What'd you say?
Heard of him?
I totally blew past your joke because I was trying to think of the day. Yeah, I think it's Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction where he's talking about, I think it's photography. Like there's something very specific. I think he even says, call back a little bit to half an hour ago. Like there's an aura to, did I say that right? I have a Pennsylvania accent, aura.
I have a New York accent, so I'm definitely not.
But I have a weird.
There's an aura.
But I have a weird,
aura.
like, my parents are from New York, so I have a weird Pennsylvania by way of New York accent that sometimes I slip into, and I'm like, there was a weird aura.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but there's an aura to art objects when you witness them in person. You feel like there's something about. I'm sure you and everyone who's listening has felt this. If you go to an art museum and you see the actual painting in person. Or the actual art object in person, there's something to that that's just different from seeing a photo of it, or seeing a postcard of it, or seeing, a JPEG of it. But he says, so there's in the age of mechanical reproduction, there's a loss of that aura, but at the same time, you're democratizing this in a certain way, and now it's not just that you have to be able to go to a museum in a major city to see this artwork. everyone can see this artwork if they want. So yeah, you lose something in some way, but you gain something in a different way. And that, as an adult, all decisions are like that, are like art in the age of mechanical reproduction in that way, where there's always going to be something you gain and always going to be something you lose. And you're going to have all the kind of like the naysayers, do you remember that Mr. Show sketch? David Cross plays the guy who's like, I only listen to things, I forget the exact thing, but I only listen to on vinyl or whatever. I don't own a TV. Like, there's always going to be those people who like, I don't own a TV and I don't listen to anything that's not on vinyl or something like that refuse to look at the benefits of the changes in culture as culture changes, or as, you know, in that same way, the decisions you make, there's going to be something existentially worthwhile in the as you have these kind of, as you mourn the death of the possibilities.
Yeah, I think there's like we're probably talking about two things, because one is just like a decision, one is just like the unease that comes with living and then seeing life change, like things change, and that's just like little reminders of mortality. It's like, I only listen to vinyl, or I don't have a TV because with every invention, I'm TikToking closer to my own death. Every time they come out with a new iPhone, I'm closer to death. You know, that's my doomsday clock. Every new fucking iPhone. Please stop. You know, I mean, it's true if you think about it. So that's why people sometimes get ill at ease with tech progress. Also, just AI is terrifying. Terrifying. AI is gonna, I don't know, like climate change or AI, like it's just a crash course into which one's gonna kill us first.
I think climate change. So when you were do you grow up in New York proper or outside?
Outside. I was born in Brooklyn, and then teeny tiny baby moved to suburbs.
Which ones? Westchester, Rye?
Westchester.
So what was the household like? I don't mean to keep harping on it, but I'm just curious about was the sadness omnipresent? Was there any kind of...
I mean, you're really asking about my childhood, which is like, it's so tricky for me to talk about because really, you know, I was just in like survival mode for most of my life. I didn't reflect on it. And now that I have space to reflect on it because I'm an independent adult away from that house. The house was absolutely destroyed, by the way, last year in a freak fucking accident. Like the month after my dad died, a tree fell on the house and demolished and destroyed the house. Truly was just like, this house is fucking gone. The house we all grew up in, the house of horrors, the haunted house, is like destroyed a month after he dies.
I mean,
like chopped the house in half, destroyed that, like...
if there's anything to reinforce your faith, it has to be something like that, where it's almost like a physical kind of like, well, this is done. Your childhood is done.
Done. Because me and my brothers would have like spent years picking through. I want this. No, I want this. No, what? And instead, it was like, well, it's all trash.
Was there any kind of in that act, was there any kind of freedom?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a favor. It's a favor I was never going to do for myself. I grieved it. Also, it made me lose my mind. I had like 5. I'm sure I didn't really have a nervous breakdown, but the fact that I was constantly going back to New York. The house was hell. Well, like also the house was me and my brother's inheritance. Like my dad had lived in this house after my mom died, and he should have moved to a smaller place. He's like, but the house is worth so much now, and it's going to be yours, and I'll give it to you, and then you'll sell it, and then and it was like, that's gone. The house is trashed. Everything about it was like, it was Job. It was Job. I went through Job last year. I was Job.
How did you deal with that?
I just had good friends, and I had faith, and I did a lot of work. I had a really good therapist. I had a really good group therapy. I just stayed. I got rid of people who were not capable of being supportive. And it's okay. And some people just aren't. They're just not, especially in LA. People are really self-absorbed. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And I stayed very close to the people who were wanting to be available to support me. And that was very helpful. And I also, my therapist, like, I just knew it was temporary. I mean, it was very painful and very hard. And now that it's done, I'm like, whoa, I'm really proud of my resilience. But like, I'm not giving it like good Yelp review. I definitely don't recommend it. I don't recommend it.
It's weird in a certain way. And I don't know if you felt this, but I feel like there's a certain kind of, growing up Jewish in America, at least in the two boomer parents, it's almost as if like our identities are intertwined with tragedy.
100%. We inherit the trauma of the Holocaust immediately, right? Like, so my grandparents didn't die in the Holocaust, but so many of their relatives did, like who didn't come out, who didn't move. And yeah, they've done like studies that it's truly inherited trauma. It gets passed down genetically now. The Jewish anxiety is there genetically because of fucking pogroms and just getting annihilated for centuries of annihilation. And like, why don't I like getting on trains? You know, like, why am I not comfortable getting on a train? Tell me, Andy.
Epigenetic anxiety.
100%. That's the word. Epigenetics. Yeah. That shit's real.
So, I mean, there's a certain sense in which we are from our childhoods attuned to this stuff in a way that I wonder if other people, I think one of the things, you know, it may have been different for you in Westchester, but definitely like in Pennsylvania, where I'm one of a handful of Jews in my high school, I'm already marked separately in a way that where like I'm look white outwardly, but I don't feel like a white Christian would.
Were you like othered?
Yeah, definitely.
You were, okay.
100%.
Yeah, I didn't have that experience. Yeah, because I'm from the tri-state area. I'm in like Little Israel, you know.
but you didn't.
Probably big Israel. I think there's more Jews in the tri-state area where I'm from than in Israel.
It's funny. Your tri-state area is different from my tri-state area, which is Pennsylvania, Jersey, and New York. And I think you get Connecticut,
Jersey, New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on what side of how far up in New York you were raised. But you still don't get to escape that the tragedy of our people in some way.
I mean, look at African Americans in the United States. When you say like, when you talk about that experience, I'm like, yeah. And then I think about literally African Americans, descended from slaves in the United States. I'm like, it must be worse. If not, it must be worse because they can't even pass for white and we can. So there's like their consistent brutalization. Like we have our anti-Semitism and it's still terrifying, but like we can pass. Black people cannot pass, you know? So like, I think like that epigenetic thing that we're talking about, I'm like that trauma, that inherited trauma, like it's fucking there. And it's, you know, and when you're being continually brutalized, like, you know, their Holocaust hasn't stopped. It hasn't stopped. Then I'm like, how do you ever have even a chance to get over for the next generation that trauma? Because your Holocaust hasn't stopped. You have to send your kids out and like they're going to get shot. It's insane.
So was there any respite in your childhood though, or was it continue? Because I'm just trying to like, I'm trying to like imagine like what it like, you know, what is the all I can think of is dumb words. Let's say climate that you grew up in, and then how does that contribute to you becoming a comedian?
Okay, so I had like a tragic childhood. I lost a sibling at a very young age, very tragically, and that was the kind of It's funny. I had this conversation with my brothers a few years ago, and they were like, when Sybil died, my twin sister, that's when like mom and dad like fell apart. And my interpretation of that was that no, Sybil was collateral damage. They were already such broken, unhealthy parents. Sorry to say this out loud, that is why she died, because they weren't being tip-top parents. they didn't like disappear, like they didn't like disappear and like disintegrate as like effective parents because of child loss, which is like the worst thing that can happen to a human being, is to lose a child. So I have really full compassion for my parents, and they did an amazing job for what that kind of loss must have felt like. And I don't know in their hearts how much they blamed themselves. It was not something that we discussed openly. That was like very repressed. We could not even mention her in the house. We didn't talk about it. It was too upsetting. But my interpretation was always that, you know, if you don't have, my parents didn't have a good relationship. They had a very toxic marriage. My mom was not always mentally well. We didn't have a word for it. We didn't know what it was, but it was like pretty hysterical and scary at times. Mean mom, you know. And I hate to like talk about that because I worship my mother. I worship my father. I love them. They're all I have. Like, so and also as I get older, I have a lot of compassion because again, they're not like handed some fucking parenting primer.
Yeah. On
your way. Now you know what you're doing. They're doing it from whatever they were raised in, and also with like extreme loss. So I do have total compassion, and you know, I said on my Instagram post today, I was like, I have a nice long distance relationship with my mom now. It's kind of better than it was.
It's so difficult in those. She's not just mean, right? Because there's also compassion there, and so you can't just like you can't just hate her.
I absolutely couldn't hate her. She was my mother. I kept waiting for her to love me the way I needed to be loved, and my mom was like ultimately just not capable. She was not capable. I guess the word would be she was abusive to me. But I hate saying that because I'm like, no. And also her reaction would be, I like can hear her in my head. She's so furious at me right now. She's like, no, I wasn't. No, I didn't do anything that I didn't get 10 times worse. And also, do you think you didn't deserve it? You were spoiled. You had, and I'm like hearing her scream at me that like, how dare I call her?
Oh God, yes. So, your super ego was formed by her voice.
Oh,
yeah. And that is the thing in I had a different, like my super ego is less my parents and more culture saying like, cool. Why aren't you more of a man? Like all that kind of stuff. Cool. But like, I know a lot of people who the parental voice is their mother, and you can't get it. It's so, because it's so close to you now, you've internalized all this stuff. Yeah. And it's part of you. And so there's like, again, it's like, you can't hate this person at all.
No,
it's this kind of like weird quantum state of like,
well now, cause that's where you reach grace, where I love my mother now. I forgive her. I have compassion. If she could have done better, she would have. She wasn't able to. So believe me, if she could have done better and been sweeter and been closer and been more loving and expressed it, she would have. It wasn't in her nature in this time, in the physical form she took for her to. I have this weird feeling, and it's so fucking wackadoo that like now it's embarrassing to admit, but like if I have a daughter, it's definitely going to be my mother, and I'm going to raise my mother. And that's going to be like the healing thing that happens where like I get a chance to love this child that needed to be loved correctly. Like I will be endowed with a daughter, and it will be my mom, and I will have to raise her. And then like the cycle will be complete, and I'll like see how hard it was from her position to be a parent, but also I'll be able to like give this, again, energy, the love and care that my mom didn't get. So she wasn't able to do it. I know it's so wild, wacky theory, but I'm fully convinced.
It felt again. You're talking to someone who is like, who is so cut off from that stuff, but it felt nice.
Well, yeah, because like I don't know. Did you ever read poetry? Did you ever read or write poetry?
No, I felt too embarrassed. I read some. There's a couple poets that I like. Love a Yeats. Give me a Yeats.
I mean, the best one in the world. Yeah, one of the greatest. I don't know. Like, well,
I'm cut off from the musicality of the universe in a way, and I think when you asked before, like that's this connection that I kind of mourn all the time in some way.
What makes you feel joy? When do you feel like in flow and connected and like really?
Never. I feel joy all the time. I like. There's a lot of joy, but it's not a joy from. Obviously, like there are moments of like of connection with friends and Naomi and listening to music or things like that that are like pure moments of joy or connection with something, but they are temporary.
Well, all joy is temporary.
Well, the connection, the connection is temporary. It's all back to this kind of like Cartesian loneliness.
Oh my God, you would do so well with a higher power, Andy. You're so primed.
But I can't force myself to.
No, it's not a force. It's not a force, but I think that you can't get there by force, but it sounds like there's like resistance.
Yeah, probably. But this comes from that repression. Yeah, any kind of repression. And when you said it just a little bit ago, I was like, how do you, if talking about your sister was repressed in your family, like how does your family ever get to some kind of peace about anything?
Nobody did. It was, it was too sad. It was too sad. You could never get over it. You could never get over it. No, nobody will ever get over it.
So with any kind of repression, it's like, how do you, when you unrepress the thing, whether it's like, it probably, again, when we talk about this stuff and I feel and I look inside and you said you're resisting it. And I'm like, yeah, I am. Like, I can feel the resistance. I can feel the like surus in my chest. Like, I know it. I can like
surus. I love a Yiddish word.
I can look inside and like physically feel there actually being resistance to it. Because it's fear of like, what kind of person will I become on the other side of this, of letting go of this repression? And it is all fear about what kind of person I will be.
Oh my God, I'm so excited for you. That's so delicious. Oh my God, it's so delicious to be like maybe on the like precipice of evolving. And like having it.
But I've been on this precipice for years. Like
it's never too late until you're dead. It's never too late until you're dead. And even then it's not too late because you'll come back and learn the lesson you need to learn.
But like it's for both of us, these repressions in our lives were a thing, I guess, that then stopped me or is stopping me. And it took, how long did it take you to unrepress?
It took a long time. I didn't seek out therapy till I was like 25. And even then I still I couldn't grieve my sister. And that therapist tried so hard. And I was like, she's like, you have to bring her in. You have to like integrate her. And I was like, but she's dead. I can't. And I really couldn't. And it's only... that's my big struggle. I would say like the only thing that has really changed is that I talk about it a lot more and I reveal it and I have posted about it. But every time I do it too, it's like, it's so overwhelming. But I sort of force myself to do it because I don't want to be repressed about it. And I also feel this obligation that she doesn't just like disappear and isn't remembered. 'Cause she matters, but it does overwhelm me. It's the too sad thing for me.
Yeah. Well, it's the thing that always gets me in therapy. And this was like in New York with my therapist, the constant theme was letting go. And how do you let go? And when you just said bring her in, to me, all these things are physical metaphors for something inside that I don't know how to do the thing.
Right. Yeah. Like I relate to this. I felt that for a long time.
Like to grieve. I still don't. I think a lot of my oppression probably does have to like, I don't think I dealt with anything as traumatic as you did, but like a lot of people in my family have died. A lot of people I've been close to have died. And I don't know what that means. I don't know how to deal with that in any kind of real way. And I think that again, all these metaphors like building walls or standing or like, that stands as in my mind, a physical impediment again between me and this future me in some way. And the idea of like bringing someone in or the idea of letting go of something. Again, I emphasize that in a weird way on purpose. So no one thinks that I don't understand the actual mechanics of that besides changing actual behavior. And I guess that's the difficult thing.
Well, it sounds like, and this is what I was told and this is what I struggled with, so allow me to like psychoanalyze you a little bit, but you're not just a brain in like a bowl of jelly and then like the body is like carrying the brain around. So you, like me, are just a brain and you're just all head and there was like no heart and there was no body. Probably sounds like you.
Yeah, Cartesian.
So, so I started doing fucking body work. I like started working out. You have to like get into your body. You have to, we're mostly body. We're leastly brain. You have to like start feeling your body and like be a body. And then your body is also filled with an emotional limbic system. I don't even know if I pronounced that right. But your body is a whole entire energy system. It's not just thoughts.
It's so
and grief is energy. I know you're like
no. I'm because I don't mean to like. I never try. I'm not. This is not a Harold. I'm not trying to like bring us back to the beginning in some way. But I got excited because the resonances are really strong. The idea, the idea of talking about poop.
Yeah.
I hate it so much.
Yep.
And the idea of having to do that at all is so disgusting to me that that talking about my cat's poop is the closest I've become to being comfortable. And
oh my God, Andy, I have a secret. You have an asshole. Andy, you have an asshole. And sometimes there's poop in it.
How dare you?
On it, coming out of it. You're a Play-Doh poop factory. Everybody's got a
Play-Doh.
A Play-Doh.
A platonic poop factory.
You are a poop factory. You got people are anal retentive or explosive. I'm explosive. You're retentive. You got to explode a little. You're not going to die. You're a body.
Were you always explosive?
Yeah. I mean, I'm shy when I'm first dating somebody. Because, I don't want them to know I have a butthole until the third date.
Yeah, I read that in one of those dating things.
Yeah.
Third dates.
He cannot know I have a butthole till the third date.
Megan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're back.
For going on this journey.
So now we're starting? The podcast is starting.
Now it's starting. Now that we've gone.
That was such a good warm-up.
We've done the heavy emotional lifting. Of yes, but no, but yes. So yeah. So I think it is interesting again comparing Jewish upbringings in a certain way and how they have gone in different directions. We have a lot of similarities, but also a lot of there's a lot of resonance, but also a lot of dissonance.
Sure. No. If you tie it up neatly in a bow, cool.
I'm trying to find a lesson.
If you don't, see, that's the thing. Like, I'm so comfortable now with like, you're on the precipice. There's no lesson. Like, who cares? I'm truly like, who cares? Like, I don't even know if there's meaning, but like, who cares if there's not? Who cares if there's not?
Yeah.
What if it doesn't mean anything?
That's what I struggle with. That's the thing I struggle with the most.
Totally
what if
okay.
it doesn't? The thing is, I don't think it means anything.
Then that's funny too.
That's what scares me.
No, it's not scary. It's funny.
There we go. Thank you. Bye. Bye, oh, 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 bye.